The Leafs lay an egg against the lowly Sharks with a shootout loss. Is it a blip or a concern? Plus, who are the best fits for the Leafs at the trade deadline? We've got all that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. What's going on, brother? How you feeling on a Tuesday?
I'm okay. I apologize. I think I need to start off the show by apologizing.
Yeah, you want to explain why, Dave? You want to explain what you did, the jinx that you levied upon the beloved Maple Leafs?
I blame Nick Richard for this one. Just want to throw that out there because I saw this
throwing Nick under the bus. Throwing Nick under the bus
because after the game against Pittsburgh, I believe it was him that tweeted out, or it was him or James Myrtle, but he tweeted out again at 1.2. And the Leafs were 27-0, leading after 2 periods this season. 27-0. That's pretty good. I thought that'd be worth sharing to everybody. Well, the Leafs were winning after 2 periods against the San Jose Sharks. They had the lead. And then the Sharks are like, nay, that 20s. This is like watching The Undertaker lose his streak at WrestleMania.
Whoa, relax. That is not like that at all. Come on now. This ain't like wrestling. This ain't nowhere near that. A random Monday night game in March.
Oh, now it's going to read 27-0-1.
Yeah. Yeah, the Maple Leafs fall in a shootout. We hadn't had a shootout at all this season up until tonight, too. So 2 things happened today that we hadn't seen all year. One, a shootout featuring the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it's the first time that they lose after leading through 40 minutes of the hockey game, Dave. And look, we kind of touched on it. We said this game's going to go one of 2 ways. Either it's going to be a close loss, which is what it turned out to be, or it's going to be point night and the Leafs are going to blow them out. There's no other way for this game to happen. And it turned out to obviously be the former, the way that we did not want it to happen, but kind of had a feeling. And let's be, fair to the team. I mean, yes, they should absolutely beat the worst team in the league 10 times out of 10. It should just happen. Yep. But this is why you play the games. And the team has played a lot of hockey of late. It's their 3rd game in 4 nights. There was cross-border travel in between, so there's a couple of excuses there as to why the Leafs didn't quite have their legs. And you definitely saw in the 3rd period and in overtime, they just didn't have much juice. And not that it's an excuse, but that could point to why that was the case. But not a good showing for Toronto at all. And you don't like to see it. And it was an opportunity for them to keep a streak alive. They're going for their 6th straight win. The Sharks, they hadn't won a game they hadn't won a game since January 30th. They went the entire month of February without a victory. And then all of a sudden, they got the Maple Leafs at home where they have not played well. That home failing to score at 5-on-5 streak continues. That theme continued on through tonight. And Toronto couldn't muster up nearly as much offense as you would think or hope they would against a bottom feeder like the San Jose Sharks. And they just, let a game slip away. They shouldn't really have won it. I thought San Jose somehow was the better team. They seemed to be in control of this one, especially in the 1st and 3rd period. Toronto showed some fight in the 2nd, but ultimately wasn't a good game from them. And it's kind of one that I'm sure you just want to throw the tape out. Is this a blip or a concern for you, Dave, a game like tonight?
I think it's more of a blip, in my opinion. There were some things I saw that I didn't like.
Yeah,
there were some efforts I saw that I didn't care for. But you also had, again, this was another instance of, and the Sharks coach said after the game that there's 8 guys in here who have friends and family here to watch this team. Or like how many times they mentioned somebody from Ontario.
all the
Um,
time.
and essentially, he said like they came to watch 60 minutes, not 40, and essentially told him like we got to pull out the full effort. So like I give San Jose credit, like they were start to finish, they put in the work, they put in the effort, and it showed when the Leafs didn't have their effort because they seemed to be a step behind from what San Jose was doing.
Yeah. And look, the only reason why I say that it's like, look, it's not a concern. Obviously, the team's been winning. They won their previous 5 games and they had won 8 of their last 9. So, like, they're winning games. All right. That's good. Regardless of how it's played, they're winning games. But what I will say is there's a couple there where they probably shouldn't have won. Also, like that, I think that you could look at and say they haven't been playing their best hockey coming out of this 5 nations break, so they were just kind of squeaking by and picking up victories. And tonight they weren't able to sneak a victory out. Almost, right? They played maybe D level, played at their D level, and still got them a point against San Jose. If they were playing a good team, they probably would have been able to sneak out a point. But again, it's just a night where Toronto just can't really muster up any offense. 0 offense at 5-on-5. Both their goals came on the power play, and really no chances either. Like you look at the underlying numbers, Dave, and this is a team that had 1 scoring chance in the first period. 1 scoring chance at 5-on-5 in the first period. They had 22% of the expected goals. Got absolutely rocked by the Sharks right out of the gate.
Well, that was really evident, especially early on. Like they just didn't. It's crazy because we always say the power play has been kind of an issue for the team, and it's the one thing that actually gave them a boost in this game was the fact that they were scoring those goals on the power play. But like, look at the expected goals at 5-on-5 in this game. It wasn't close. Wasn't even close. Like San Jose, that they dictated a lot of the play.
61%. San Jose had 61% of the goals at 5-on-5.
Yeah, they expect like it. Sometimes you can get by in games like that. This wasn't one of those games where the Leafs were going to get by with a half effort, and it showed. San Jose's got some younger players that want to show up. And they talked a lot about. We heard Macklin Celebrini give Austin Matthews a lot of praise.
Yep.
Will Smith as well.
Yep.
Like this was an opportunity for these younger guys to show, hey, I can hang with a team like that has the amount of star power that Toronto has. So, but I mean, we've seen it how many times, right? How many times with this team where the opponent wants to have their best like a show me night against Toronto. It's always the case. And it always seems like sometimes the Leafs just aren't ready for it, which I don't get. Sometimes, like they're gonna do it. Just like, how are you not ready for it?
Yeah, it just for some reason, man. Like you look at what they've been doing at home recently, and it hasn't been good. I don't know why. Like, yes, they went on that road trip right before the Four Nations face off, and then they went on a road trip basically right afterward. They played a game and won at home, but prior to that, things were not going well. Like I'm if you date it back to, I think it's January 15th is like kind of that date, I believe, or even like the new year. Realistically, it hasn't been good for the new year. Yeah, date it back to January 1st for the Maple Leafs, and at home they have not been very good. They have not won a lot of games. So yeah, the last 10 games, they're a 500 team, and they're giving up over 3 goals a game, 3.2 penalty kill, 66% in that stretch. And I bet you if you actually bring it to maybe it was December 1st, that might have even been the stat where it really started to go downhill. Yeah, it's just on a home ice, it's just not going good for the Maple Leafs. And I don't know what it is about why they seem to be struggling right now at Scotiabank Arena, but they really, really do. They've picked up a measly 7 points in their last 6 games at home, and I don't quite understand why they're struggling so hard when they're playing so well away from Scotiabank Arena. It really shouldn't. Like it's supposed to be an advantage to play at home. Like you get last change, you got the crowd behind you, you should be able to play off that buzz, and For some reason, it's just not working out for the Maple Leafs right now on home ice.
And I don't want to hear about the crowd. I like that's not a reason why they can't put an effort at home. Like I understand the crowd can pick up a team and provide some energy. I get it. But at the same time, you're at home, familiar settings, right? The other team is, as you said, has a disadvantage with the last change. There's really no reason why the effort can't be there. And I think, that's something that when you're looking at, what would potentially happen this season, let's say they don't win the division. You can point to their struggles at home as part of it, right? I know their record's not terrible, 20-11-1, but frankly, it should be better. And that's crazy to think with this team. Like, I'm just kind of looking at the standings here. Look at the Jets, 23-5-4. It's a pretty good record at home, right?
Yep.
I'm trying to see, like Columbus, 26-4 at home. Like, there are teams who know how important it is to get that home ice advantage. And for some reason, Toronto just doesn't. They just don't get it.
Well,
the last stretch has not been good.
Luckily, they're winning games on the road, which is why it's kind of counteracts it. Which is why they're still at the top of the table in the Atlantic Division. But yeah, their last 8 games here, Dave. They're 3-4-1 with giving up an average of 3.25 goals per game, scoring just 2.5 goals per game themselves, with a power play of 21% and a penalty kill 53.9% the last 8 games for the Maple Leafs, with the points percentage of sub 500. So, the last 8 games, that's since January 11th, it has not been great. That's what, 6 weeks? Like that's a long time, 6-7 weeks. That's a while where a team has been struggling. So hopefully something changes, man, because I know the Maple Leafs really, really do need to get it going here. And because if they continue on their winning ways, they're going to get home ice in the playoffs. Let's hope that they can figure it out. They go back out onto the road again, though, for a 3-game road trip starting in Vegas on Wednesday. So I guess, they're going back out on the road, just this quick stop home. So they have a chance to regroup themselves once they hit the road, and then they're back for a 4-game swing. But it's Florida, it's Ottawa, it's Calgary, and it's Colorado. 4 teams all battling for a playoff spot. So it's going to be 4 tough games that they're going to have to come back and hopefully, get some road wins or get some home wins piled up here as we come out of the NHL trade deadline. Speaking of the trade deadline, we got a fun little segment for you guys in a little bit. Would you rather trade deadline edition? Gonna pit a couple of players against each other, and Dave's gonna basically tell you who he'd prefer if he were GM Brad Treliving in the Maple Leafs. So we'll do that, and we're gonna get to the good, the bad, the ugly of this game on the other side. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Today's show is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. And, many of you might like the no shell variety. It's a perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether you're snacking at your desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always a go-to. And if you love cracking open the shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Get snacking and cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, with brand new episodes of the Locked On Leafs podcast, available free wherever you get a podcast and also up on YouTube for you video watchers. If you're enjoying the show, we'd ask that you subscribe to the podcast and make sure that you maybe hit the notification bell on YouTube as well, so you know exactly when new episodes are dropping each and every day. It's all Leafs all the time here in the Locked On Leafs podcast. Toronto with a 3-2 loss in the shootout to the San Jose Sharks. And as we do after every loss, and we haven't had to do this in a couple of weeks since Four Nations face-off was the last time we had to do a good, bad, and ugly. But let's get to it, Dave. Let's say something nice about this team, all right? We spent the last 10 minutes kind of carving them up, saying it wasn't good, no juice, no energy. What was good about tonight? Anything?
Well, if you ever need a goal with a few seconds left in a period, call it Matthew Knies.
Yeah.
4 seconds left in the period. He pots the goal. It's like, it's one thing to do it once. I mean, the 0.0, the one in Pittsburgh still remains bizarre, just unbelievable. But I mean, he continues to do all the right things, right? Get to the net, put pucks on net, be in the right position, and I just a thing. I think many would agree that Matthew Knies has not reached his full potential, which is kind of crazy to think.
No, honestly, well, he's only 22 years old. Like, he's still got a ways to go. And when he was coming into the league, the name that a lot of people and a lot of scouts were kind of associating with was Chris Kreider. And Chris Kreider's had multiple 40-goal seasons. He had a 50-goal season just a couple of years ago. So, yeah, like if that's the ceiling is 40, 50 goals for a power forward, I mean, yeah, of course there's a big-time ceiling. He's at 24 already, and there's still, 20 games to go, 21 games to go for the Maple Leafs. It's conceivable he could get to 30 this season. Very conceivable he could end up with a 30-goal season in his sophomore year. More goals than Connor Bedard, I might add. Just throwing that out there. No shade, just saying. But yeah, I think he's played great in all situations. He's killing penalties. He's on the power play. On the first unit, he was, screening the goalie. On the second one, I wasn't sure if maybe he got a tip on it on the Tavares goal. But did they end up, or no, he did get the tip, right? He ended up getting no, he didn't get the tip on the Tavares goal, but he stuffed it in on the second one.
Yeah.
But he provided the screen on the first goal. So, factoring in big time with this team offensively, which is exactly what you're asking of him, and we're hoping he could do this season. Yeah, he was fantastic. He could throw the body around a little bit too. But the power play went 2 for 2. So got to show some love to the power play. 2 for 5, scored twice on the power play. So got to give some love to the power play. Give a little bit of love to Phil Myers, right? Big hit, lays a massive hit on Barclay Goodrow, and then fights Mario Ferraro on the response. Thought he had a good little tilt, so we'll give a little shout out to Phil Myers as well. All right, Dave, what was bad?
All right, the bad. I mean, giving up I thought that second goal was just bad, flat out bad. Like, Stolarz got caught, faked out pretty hard there. Granted, it looks like he kind of got stuck in the post there, but nobody going after Toffoli in front of the net. Also, you let the guy skate around. I think was it Eklund skate around behind the net. Wennberg, sorry, yeah, Alex Wennberg around the net without just don't go for a little skate around the net. Nobody challenging him in front. Like this team was a step behind in a lot of ways, and that Benoit Timmins pairing, I'm sorry, if that's going to be a pairing in the playoffs, I can't. It's just that when we talk about needing to improve this blue line, it's because I just can't imagine a world where Craig Berube is okay with that pairing, in tough playoff minutes.
Yeah, honestly, it's not a pairing that looked good tonight at all. Although I would say no pairing looked great either. Like OEL and Riley got caved in. I didn't think they were particularly good tonight either. Like they need to add another top 4 defenseman or someone who can play in the top 4, which will kick OEL down to the third pair, and maybe OEL Benoit like a little bit more than OEL and Connor Timmins. So again, it just brings up the fact that I think Toronto's still a top 4 blue liner away from rounding out their defense core. And then we know that they would like to also add a third line center. We'll get more into that in a couple of moments here when we get to our trade deadline chat. But yeah, for me, the OEL pairing, the Toffoli goal, as you mentioned, the second goal, everyone just standing around, puck watching. And for me, just the third period in general, I thought that the Maple Leafs really didn't do a whole lot. They were outchanced 6-1 in the third period. They were up 2-0 to start that period, right? And they had scored with 4.5 seconds left. You would think that, okay, that should be the nail in the coffin. The team was 27-0. 27-0. They're undefeated when bringing a lead into the third period, and you let the worst team in the NHL break that streak. It was ugly, and they didn't really have much control at all throughout the entire period. Expected goals were 78% in favor of the San Jose Sharks in the third at 5-on-5. 11-5 were the scoring chance differential, 9-2 the shots at 5-on-5. So really the Sharks just kind of took advantage of Toronto, and I would say they looked tired. There wasn't much juice in any legs out there. And good for San Jose for taking advantage, but not a great night, not a good period at all for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I guess you could kind of also say that was just part of the ugly as well, was giving that away. But what was your ugly, Dave?
Well, as ugly as they play through the first 60 minutes of the game, you have a 4-on-3 advantage in overtime. 4-on-3 power play usually would mean that you have a really good chance to end it, because I don't know many games where teams haven't been able to take advantage of that, and Leafs have been one of those teams. But man, there were some brutal looks on that power play. Like, there was one play where Nylander tries to pass it to Matthews.
Yep.
And I don't know what happened.
The puck was bouncing around everywhere, so I don't know. Like, yeah, the Leafs weren't getting much on their passes, because there's 2 or 3 times where the Leafs tried to get it to Matthews standing in the zone, waiting for a slapper, and it just didn't get there. It either got intercepted or it bounced on them or something.
What's usually the solution if you're having a hard time passing it on the power play like that?
Yeah, just shoot on net.
Put the puck on the net.
Yeah.
Right? Nylander, put the puck on the net. Marner, put the puck on the net. John Tavares in front of the net, who had the puck, put it on the net. No, let me pass it back to the middle again.
Yeah.
Overpassing has cost his team many times. Like this, again, you scored 2 on the power play. You were doing something right because you were shooting the puck on the net. No, let's pass it around 3-4 different times and then not get anything out of it. Like, that to me was so ugly. I said, now San Jose is going to get a bit of momentum. They're going to really push the pace. And I mean, how many times they could have ended that overtime? Like, Will Smith left wide open because nobody had any legs to go and get to him. Like, Stolarz had to make some big saves there in overtime. Otherwise, that game should not have gone to a shootout.
Yeah, I mean, there was the one, it was like 3-on-1 almost, basically, where Marner had to play defense and they shot it instead of going across for a one-timer and got the stop. But yeah, it wasn't a great overtime period at all for them. You're right, and it led to another kind of lackluster shootout as well. I mean, Marner breaks his stick on the shootout. So it just kind of went from bad to worse once the 60 minutes were done. But for me, it was just like 5-on-5 offense overall, like thoroughly outplayed throughout the game. San Jose was 61% of the expected goals at 5-on-5. Toronto did not find the score sheet at 5-on-5. Both their goals came on the power play. So to not score against the San Jose Sharks at 5-on-5 is kind of criminal. This is a terrible team. An absolutely awful team with Alex Georgiev, who statistically has been the worst goalie in hockey. And you let him pitch a shutout at 5-on-5? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The scoring chances in the first and third period, because second period, okay, they had a little bit of momentum going, but in the first and third, they were outchanced 17-6. They only had 6 scoring chances in those 40 minutes of play. You're not going to win a lot of games with that. You're lucky that it was San Jose and they stink too. And you're lucky to get out of this game with one little pity point, because any other team, a team that's battling for the playoffs, you put up that effort in their next game on Wednesday against Vegas, you're walking out of there with no points. Guaranteed. No points. So the 5-on-5 offense, particularly at home, boy, it's been ugly now for the last 8-9 games, and it's only, it's got to turn around if they want to start winning some games, and especially heading into the playoffs, because they want home ice, but they got to score when they get home ice advantage. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I didn't think Matthews, Marner, like those guys need to bring it more, right? You're talking about what's eight. Like I'd like to know how Marner, Matthews, even Nylander, like how are the Stars performing at home versus on the road? I guarantee.
I can tell you.
I guarantee that they are doing a lot better on the road than they are at home, and that's simply not going to be good enough. And again, yes, if you go and look right now at the standings, they've got an almost identical record at home than the Florida Panthers. Yeah, that's fine, but it's also you're looking too much of the whole picture, not just the recent stretch here, right? Because they were really good at home to start the year. We also had issues scoring to start the season at home. Like this is not something new. I can't explain it. I'm sure Craig Berube will love the answer, but yeah, they need to fix it.
So since January 1st, and the team has played, I believe, 10 games at home since January 1st. Yes, 10 games at home since Jan 1. And Austin Matthews has 13 points in those 10 games. Marner has 12. Knies has 10. Nylander has 9. And then Tavares just 6 points. Holmberg has 4 points. He's 6th in scoring. Then you got McCabe. You've got Tanev. You got OEL. Like, there's no secondary scoring when you get to home ice. Like, Domi doesn't have a goal in those 10 games. Bobby McMahon, 0 goals his last 10 games at home, but he goes on the road and he provides a little bit of offense. You've got no goals coming out of Nicky Bobby on home ice. 0 goals, 0 points in his last 10 games at home, a -7. So Nick Robertson has not played well on home ice either. So, yeah, for some reason that offense is really, really putrid when they're at home. On the road there, Dave, just to give you the opposing view of those stats, Austin Matthews, 16 points in 12 games. Marner, 13 and 12. Knies, 12 and 12. Morgan Riley, 12 points his last 13 road games. Nylander's got 10 points his last 13. Bobby McMahon, 0 goals in his last 10 home games, 7 goals his last 13 road games. Like, that's been the biggest difference. Nick Robertson, 5 goals his last 12 road games. So that extra 12 goals you're getting between Bobby McMahon and Nick Robertson is a difference between winning and losing these games on home and road. When those guys have a combined 0 goals their last 10 home games, but they have 12 in the last 13, no wonder they're winning games on the road. They're getting that secondary scoring. It's not something they got tonight because, again, it was Tavares and it was Knies and it was all on the power play. Nothing at 5-on-5, nothing from the depth, nothing from the blue line either. And it's a big difference from what we saw in the 4-game road trip leading up to this game. So I don't know, man. I hope that when they come back for that 4-game homestand, when they return from the West Coast, things go better because it's not been good the last since the calendar flipped to 2025. They've not played well at home. Been a 500 team, just not good enough for a team who has cup aspirations. All right, Dave, on the other side, who would you rather? NHL trade deadline edition. We'll take a look at some players that the Leafs might be interested in. Who would GM Dave Morassutti be interested in for the Maple Leafs? That's coming up next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you on a Tuesday, March 4th. We are just a few days away from the NHL trade deadline on Friday, March 7th at 3 p.m. We both expect for the Maple Leafs to be relatively active. It's been, long assumed that they would try and add a third-line center and probably also another defenseman if they can do that as well. Maybe another depth forward of some kind to round out the group, but there will be at least a move or two made, I believe, between now and Friday. And Dave, we've got a bunch of different segments that we'll be doing and having some fun with to have these conversations between now and the deadline. And today I kind of want to just get, a good sense of who you would rather have, like flat out, like what players would best suit this Maple Leafs lineup. Who should they be after? So we're going to play Would You Rather, and I'm going to give you a couple of names, and you got to tell me which of those players you'd rather the Leafs pursue. So we'll start with some higher end talent, right? Some big names that we've heard the Maple Leafs are interested in. All right, so we'll start with the first two names, okay? Braden Shen or Scott Laughton?
I'll go Braden Shen.
Why?
I just think there's a bit more upside offensively to Braden Shen. I know he's a bit older. I think there is a bit of a drop off when it comes to Laughton's offensive ability. I think Braden Shen could more, like, let's say they have an injury in the top six. I would feel more comfortable that Braden Shen can fill a top six. So now I know that Scott Laughton does play tops. He's a second line center for Philly. I just think that Shen brings a little more offensive upside as a potential top six center than I think Scott Laughton does. I think Laughton's a very good defensive player. I like the edge he brings to his game. I just think Shen has just that little edge with his offensive output.
I think Braden Shen's the better player right now, but would you agree or disagree with the fact that acquiring Braden Shen at the price that it would in comparison to Scott Laughton might be a little what's the word that you would use here? Maybe a little more aggressive. Like, I don't know, like, would you prefer Braden Shen at a first round pick or Scott Laughton at a second round pick?
My thinking is that if it's going to be like the Leafs have to blow St. Louis's like.
Well, I just said those are the terms, right? The asking price for Shen's a first. The asking price for Laughton is a second. Which one? Who are you calling first? Doug Armstrong to accept, or are you calling Danny Briere to accept?
I probably call Doug Armstrong first. Okay. I like a first round pick. Yeah, first round picks do have value, but where the Leafs have been picking and where you expect them to be picking, you're not getting a Braden Shen level player. Right, and by the time you do get that first round pick in the system and potentially an NHL player, it's gonna be way down the road, right? So, and like the second round pick's the same deal, right? It's Florida second round pick. It ain't. It's not gonna be a high pick either. So, yeah. I do think that Shen, you probably get a little more bang for your buck.
All right, we'll stick with the winner, Braden Shen or Brock Nelson.
I'd still do Braden Shen.
You would?
Yeah, I know Brock Nelson's very productive offensively, but can he do the other things that you need? Now, I know when I was watching with Four Nations, he wasn't in a top six role with Team USA. Pretty sure he was our fourth line center in that tournament. So he has played that role a bit, but I just think that the familiarity with Shen and Berube, I don't think you can discount how much that'll play into the Leafs' desires to go and get him. And I'm just done also paying for a rental. Unless Brock Nelson's coming relatively cheap, which he probably won't.
He won't, but so does that mean the Shen contract, the future of that contract, 3 more years at 6.5, that doesn't necessarily worry you?
No, because at least you got the guy around, right?
Well, yes, but what if he's not Braden Shen next year and the year after that and the year after that? You're paying $6.5 million for a guy who probably is only worth like $2 million. You know what I mean?
I just don't know if I see the drop off next year. Maybe in a couple of years. I don't see it next year. And that to me, I will still roll the dice on that.
All right. So basically, because those are like the top 3 centers that are out there that are readily available on the market. I guess Yanni Gourde would be the other player you could throw out there as a potential one. But I'm sure you still would go Braden Shen over Yanni Gourde. I don't think that necessarily would surprise people. Would you prefer Ryan O'Reilly, though? Like Ryan O'Reilly or Braden Shen? If O'Reilly's available and willing to waive to come to Toronto and it's a relatively similar price, would you rather O'Reilly or Shen?
Oh,
This is easy for me. It's Ryan O'Reilly.
I would say O'Reilly just because we know what he can bring. We know what. Again, there's still that familiarity with Berube. I'm
Want
sure
a Conn
Berube,
Smythe. Want a
right?
Conn Smythe with Berube.
I just don't know if he would want to come to Toronto. That
I get, like, a lot of people are saying that, but like I think it's different with Berube here now, don't you? Like, I understand
would
he
hope
said
so.
no thanks the first time around when he was asked to come back, but now that it's Tree Living and Berube, like, maybe it's just a different situation than it was a couple of years ago when he left.
Yeah, I would probably, if you had to ask me between the two, I would take O'Reilly, assuming you get more of what you got from, like, if he's. I don't think health has been an issue for O'Reilly this year. So as long as we don't have to deal with any potential health issue with O'Reilly, I think you grow with him.
Okay, perfect. We'll move to the blue line now. I'm curious to get your thoughts on a couple of blue liners that could be available. Rasmus Ristolainen or Luke Shen?
Okay, so if I had to pick between Shen and Ristolainen, I don't like. I just think Shen's fit works a lot better than I think Ristolainen does. I think Ristolainen has done very well to if you asked me years ago before he got to Philly, I would not want Ristolainen. I would not want anything to do with him. I think he's done a very good job resetting his value. I just think maybe because I've seen what Luke Shen has done in Toronto, and I think he would, getting that second chance to have him back here, third chance so technically, but second chance to trade from in this current situation, I think could work well. We know he works with Morgan Rielly, right? Go with something that will work rather than, I don't know if Ristolainen will work. And
David Savard or Luke Shen?
To me, David Savard doesn't scream top four to me. He's like a depth defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
To me, like, David.
To be fair, so is Luke Shen, but you've seen him play with Rielly.
I'm like, Luke Shen with Nashville has also played up in the lineup with it when they've had injuries and stuff too.
Yeah.
Savard a few years ago, I probably would have said yes. I just think there's too many miles on that body right now. And he in Montreal, that's not a good blue line, and he's like not even like one of their top blue liners anymore. So I think he's just taking too much of a step back.
Okay, if the Leafs go big buck hunting and go after one of these couple of other defensemen that could be available, I'm going to give you a 3-pack of defensemen where if Toronto really wanted to reshape the blue line and go all in, and instead of getting a third line center, focus on getting a top 4 defenseman, here are 3 names that are somewhat in play, or I've heard their name talked about at some point. Rasmus Andersson of the Calgary Flames, Colton Parayko of the St. Louis Blues, or Adam Larson of the Seattle Kraken?
I am a big Rasmus Andersson fan.
Mm-hmm.
I know Calgary very much doesn't want to trade him. They've talked a lot about wanting to keep him, but they're also a team that, they're playing so well this year. Is what they're doing sustainable going forward? I do miss a chance to potentially help your current retool stage by not trading Rasmus Andersson. Like, I think I would have Rasmus Andersson as my top target personally. I would probably then have, I think Parayko has a little more upside than Animal. Like Larson, you're getting. He's gonna play tough minutes. He's gonna block a bunch of shots. He's more of a physical defenseman. I just think Parayko has a little more upside. Yes, I know that his age and contract isn't exactly the most flattering, but again, we brought up another St. Louis guy who's worked with Berube, and that's always going to be something that coaches and teams look at when they make these deals. And look, why I brought Rasmus Andersson up first? Who's the GM of the Leafs? Brad Treliving. Treliving was the one that brought in Rasmus Andersson. So I think he knows a thing or two about how Rasmus Andersson could work with this team. And I would like Rasmus Andersson as a potential like top 4 guy going forward. I think he has one more year on his deal after this year. He's 28, right? He's a good age for this core right now. He kind of can work with this core. They got a lot of 30+ defensemen on this team. Go out and get someone he's a perfect age of a defenseman you bring in and you sign to an extension, like when Hannafin went to Vegas. Get something very similar. I think would work very well. I just don't know. Calgary could just be like, yeah, no, we like what we're doing this year. We want to see it through. Personally, I think that would be a bit of a mistake. If you can get something really good for Rasmus Andersson, that would help you down the road a bit more. I would think that'd be the better option. But
yeah, they are currently in a playoff position. They have the second wild card spot with Vancouver tied with them, both with 65 points. But I think Colorado has more, or Calgary has more regulation wins as the tiebreaker. But St. Louis only 1 point back of them. Utah just 2 points back. And that's probably it. Right now, it's a four-team race for one spot in the West. We'll see if Calgary decides to go for it or maybe unload some of those players. And Rasmus Andersson, you bet your ass, would be a player of interest if he does somehow become available. And the problem is we know that Calgary has a little hesitancy to deal with Toronto, though, which
get
is
over it.
Much bigger hurdle to climb. But yeah, that would be a massive one. So now I'm curious, right? You got one big bullet to spend. Would you spend on Rasmus Andersson or Braden Shen?
Oh, Rasmus Andersson, 1,000%.
Yeah. Okay.
So you solidify your top four. I think Rasmus has really good upside.
Parayko or Shen?
Probably. Oh man, actually, that's a lot closer than I think. I probably lean Shen.
Okay.
I think Parayko's deal is a bit pricey going down.
It's the same deal, isn't it?
No, actually, I think he's. I'm just checking right now his deal going forward. See, it is. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more years after this year.
Ooh.
With a $6.5 million cap hit.
Yeah, so same number, just an extra 3 years on top of it.
He's 30 now. Parayko is 31. He is younger than Shen. It's another one of those. Will he age well with the deal? If we're talking about that, Parayko is he's bigger. I think there's a little more concern about him being able to, because he has not stayed healthy at times during his career. He has had that issue staying healthy. The last few years, he's been a lot more durable. I'll give him that. I think there's more upside with, I think Braden Shen fits the need a little bit better.
I've got one more for you, Dave. One more for you. It's a spicy one. Are you ready for it?
All right.
Mikko Rantanen or Mitch Marner?
Oh, man. If you asked me this a few weeks ago, I would have said Rantanen, no doubt. Marner's crept in as, when you got Rantanen away from McKinnon, it's a little different now, isn't it?
Yeah, but you put him next to Austin Matthews, and he could kind of
return. I do think that if you look at playoff performance, you're taking Rantanen. I would probably lean towards Rantanen, but I think it's a lot closer than some people have made it to be.
Yeah, it is definitely close. And the playoff experience and the ability to just change up the minutia of the group would be the more appetizing thing. But I will say, Mitch Marner, and I think it was very much on display at the Four Nations too. And a lot of people noticed this. His defensive prowess is one of the best when it comes to forwards, right? One of the best defensive forwards, Selke contender, Selke candidate. And there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah.
A lot of value in that. So he may not be as flashy or as brash as a Mikko Rantanen, a moose like Mikko, but he can be effective. That's for damn sure. And I don't know. Sounds like Rantanen wants the bag, like the absolute bag. I feel like the Leafs would probably be able to get away paying Marner less money,
Mm-hmm.
they would have to pay Mikko. So I think I
Agreed.
roll the dice and keep Mitch Marner over Mikko Rantanen.
I think Marner would prefer. I think we know he wants to stay in Toronto.
Yeah.
And I think that would help the Leafs in a potential contract negotiation with Marner, or so we hope to think.
Yeah, maybe we're just being wishful. There's just wishful thinking here. All right, let's put a pin in the deadline talk for today. We'll pick back up tomorrow and go through some of the bigger names, maybe a top 10 wants list. I've got a big list of names that I would like the Maple Leafs to target, from stars to depth players. Maybe we'll unveil that list tomorrow. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs pod on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.